Are you ready to turn your podcast into an authority engine and not just more content? Well, welcome to Influential Voices of Authority. This is the podcast for coaches, consultants, and experts who are ready to stop being the best kept secret and move to being that recognized, sought after authority in their niche. I'm your host, Erik K. Johnson, podcast talent coach and media veteran. In every episode of Influential Voices of Authority, I sit down with experts, with industry leaders, with visibility experts to uncover how they use their voice, their message, and their platform to build trust, to grow their audience, and attract premium clients. So if you're ready to turn your voice into your most powerful asset, you're in the right place. Welcome to Influential Voices of Authority. You know, most experts, they start a podcast looking to make a little money, generate a little revenue, grow their business. But most influential people use their business to advance something bigger than themselves. There's a purpose. There's a mission behind it. People don't rally around products or processes or what it is that you do. They rally around purpose. They don't follow expertise alone. They follow why you're doing what you're doing. Influential people find a cause or a purpose or a mission that burns like a fire within them. And everything they do revolves around moving that mission forward. A couple weeks ago, I was at a joint venture event out in Oregon, right near Medford. And I met a lot of people out there. I met a doctor whose mission it was to help 1 million people live healthier lives. That's a mission. Doesn't talk anything about his podcast or anything about what he does or how he does it, but he's got a mission to help 1 million people. I met another one whose mission was to help 1 million people spread their message. Now, you don't need to help 1 million people. Maybe you just want to help a few thousand. But if you have that mission, if you have that cause that's burning inside of you, it gives you a reason to do something more than what you're doing. Purpose is the foundation of everything I teach. Purpose is the foundation of authority engineering. When it comes to moving toward being that recognized, sought after authority, the foundation of everything is your purpose. It's why you do what you do, because without a purpose, you can't create a tribe. People follow a leader when they have true purpose. You know, it's also the foundation, the basis for Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. In the book, he says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And he has many, many, many examples in there. If you haven't read the book, I highly recommend it. You know, the strongest authority isn't built because you're the smartest person in the room. It's built because people believe that your work matters. True magnetic leaders don't just talk about what they do, they tell the story that makes others believe. And that's what I want you to do. That's why today's conversation with Paul Waterboy Brown is so inspiring. He is an amazing individual. Paul didn't build a podcast to become famous. He built a platform to advance his mission that would change millions of lives. And when I say millions, I literally mean millions, because along the way, Paul discovered something every expert needs to hear, and that's authority doesn't begin when people recognize your expertise. It begins when people recognize your purpose. They want to follow you because you have a purpose. Paul Waterboy Brown is a former U.S. soldier. He has partnered with Evans Chidukutuku Jr. There's an Evans Senior, and Paul tells the whole story about it. Evans is a mechanical engineer, which there are a lot of mechanical engineers around, but Evans is a Zambian mechanical engineer, because the two of them together have committed 2 years of their lives to walking across 13 countries in Africa to change the current water scarcity reality. They are out to bring water to millions of people across 13 countries in Africa as they walk across the continent. It's the purpose behind Paul's podcast. That's everything he does. And he is here today to tell us the story all about it. So enjoy my conversation with Paul Waterboy Brown. Paul, it's so great to see you again. Thanks for being here today.
Great to be here. Thank you so much, Eric.
Absolutely. You know, you have a fantastic podcast with On Your Terms, and you have an amazing mission as you're walking across Africa, planting all those wells. Tell me how you use your podcast to grow your authority and help power that mission.
Sure. I take the approach that authority and credibility is properly rooted in relationship. So, On Your Terms podcast is all about how my guest and my listener has gotten or is getting their life, their freedom, the way they want it on their terms. So, guests come on there. We talk about how they're getting there. And one of the principles of the show is to be comfortable in process because there's really no such thing as, oh, I've made it. If you ever think you've made it, you realize that that mountain you're climbing up is really just a plateau. So celebrate, take a little rest, and get ready to keep climbing. And that becomes a good thing once you realize that, at least in my experience.
That's awesome. You have an amazing background in the military. Thank you for your service there. Truly appreciate that. Tell me
Thank
how
you.
tell me how the water walk mission originated and how you made that journey from military through your real estate career into walking across Africa.
Certainly. Well, two very different things, but the combat experience and the leadership slash mission training that I learned in the Army and lived in the Army has been so helpful with walking a continent. Um, and my journey into caring about people having water started in the Army. And I said something stupid back in 2010. I was still in the Army. I was an officer, infantry officer. Recently came back from a 15-month deployment in Iraq where I was enlisted, then went to officer school. And but I was at home and I was on my favorite author's website learning about early Christian history. And I saw this book on there about giving to the poor. And I said, well, I don't want to hear about giving to the poor. I want to learn about early Christian history. And then I was like, Paul, do you hear yourself? You are an idiot. You need that book. So I ordered the book. I love the book. Short little book, very provocative, very convicting. And I left that book with a conviction that if I don't need it this month, then it goes to someone who does. And then I read a second book shortly thereafter by Richard Stearns, former president of World Vision. Learned a whole lot in that book, but the two main things were there's still a billion people in the world. That's 1 out of 8 people in the world that don't have reliable, clean water nearby. And more importantly, if we just do a little bit to help a family solve their water problem, then it helps them solve all their other major problems.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And so how does that spur, okay, great. Why I could just give to a charity that helps with water. When does it pop into your mind that you know what I need to do? I need to walk Africa and start planting wells with all of these amazing communities.
Sure, it happened like many things, little by little. So where my journey with water went from there was I started giving to organizations like World Vision that do this work. And I was looking for things that last, like systems, not just, oh, hand somebody bags of rice and water, but livestock empowerment programs or well drilling programs. So those are the kinds of things I started giving to and sponsoring children long term. The the biggest switch flip that came was about 6 years after that story. I was out of the Army, I was working for the man as an operations manager, a few different companies after I got out of the Army. And I was learning real estate investing because the research that I did, whether it was good or not, led me to the conclusion that the best way to free up my time was through real estate investing. So I was learning about it and starting to hire mentors and going to conferences so I could sharpen my own axe and build my network and get better at real estate investing. So I was at my first real estate investors conference in Orlando, Florida, February 2016. It was Ron LeGrand's conference. Marshall Silver was on stage, and he was saying things like, "Oh, Erik, you're awesome. You can do great in real estate. You should buy my coaching program. Rush to the back of the room with your credit card." And about then, uh, I just felt this very distinct but inaudible voice that I interpret was God speaking, saying, "Paul, you're going to take care of this water problem in this generation." And I had four thoughts at once. You want to hear them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The first one was, God, I don't have the network or net worth for that.
Yeah.
Second was, but if you're calling me, that's not really my problem. So, yes, sir. The third one was the feeling that it was already done. I just needed to walk into it. I didn't understand the significance of walk yet. And the fourth one was, I already knew, Erik, that no good or lasting thing is done by a person. You know, it's like that African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a team. I
Yeah.
already knew it takes a team, or in this case, teams of teams. But there was still this weight and responsibility of the power of one person stepping up and accepting a call. And not so I can go guilt everybody else into accepting my call or my passion, but so I can say, okay, well, I can't, as one person or even one team, go fix the water crisis, but I can receive the call to take responsibility for it and live a life that sees it finished and fixed over the next 20 years by 2035. So I accepted that, and I did not rush off to India or African nations and try to save the rainforest while I'm being rained on, proverbially speaking. Because if I would have
Okay.
done that, one, I wouldn't have known what I was doing and wouldn't have made much of an impact. And two, I would have been out of money 3 weeks later and had to go back to work for the man. So it caused me to build a better real estate portfolio than I would have, because I would have been satisfied with like one or two houses personally. But it made me take more risk and more action than I would have, knowing if I don't do what I'm called to do, then a billion of my best friends might die or get sick.
So
So it
at this
caused me to,
point, you're thinking, I have this great mission ahead of me, but how in the world am I going to pay for it? Tell me that thought process and how you said by doubling down on real estate, it helps me with the water mission.
yeah, my initial thought was this real estate is going to both free up my time, which was the first and most important factor, and it's going to pay for it. Because I thought, well, if this was given to me, I shouldn't be out asking Erik to pay for it. I should figure out a way to make that happen.
Okay.
And as I figured it up, it's somewhere between a $1 to $20 billion problem. And I assumed that,
That's a pretty big gap.
yeah, it's a big gap because it affects 1 out of 8 people in places all over the world.
Yeah.
And and it's going to take time to get there. So if I were to predict and say it could be solved with $2 billion, I can't say that with any kind of certainty and
Right.
honesty. And I also can't say, well, it's going to take $20 billion because when you look at the variances of all these different countries, various levels of needs, and even inflation, like it's not going to get solved this year. If it's to solve it in the next 10 years is both ambitious and also possible, and I believe incumbent upon us as humans, should have already
Well,
been solved, frankly.
how much does it cost to plant a well on average?
Depending on the method, like the least expensive method I know of, it takes anywhere from 2 grand to 3,500, and
Okay.
that's good for depths of about 100 feet. And a lot of times, like say in Texas, India, Uganda, Malawi, we easily get water at 70 feet or sooner. And I'm talking about in the water sands, in the aquifer, clean water, and we drink it once it comes out. That's one of the
Okay.
ways we test and we show we believe in what we're doing. And then there's another outfit that we recently met that will drill wells with a similar method, but more of a less human labor, and they can go to about 250 feet. And then their cost is around 6 or 7 grand per well.
Okay.
And
Got it.
then your really deep water wells, those get up into like the 25 and $35,000 mark,
What would be considered really deep?
past 400 feet.
Okay.
We're
Got
actually
it.
right now we're considering buying a drill from a company in Texas that probably costs about 40 grand. It's trailerized and it can go down to 400 feet and go through rock, which is that will suit our purposes most of the places that we're experiencing in Africa, but certainly not all of them, especially once you get up into like Saharan places or any place with a desert for
So
the
you
most
get
part.
the real estate business built up, and you're like, okay, we're ready to do this. Let's make the trip over to Africa. Tell me what that was like when you first stepped foot in Africa and this thing was ready to start. What was kind of going through your head?
I This wasn't my first time going to Africa, but my first time going to Africa to train locals on how to drill their own water wells. That was in 2022. And I went there as a volunteer of 1 Million Wells, which is now our partner organization and also our mentor organization. So we work together. And we were there in Malawi and Uganda training local people on how to do 1 million wells, triple patented reverse flow water well. And I say we, sometimes 1 million wells is we, sometimes it's them, just depends on what we're talking about. But we share those patents freely. And that was a unique experience. It was an eye opener. The way I got there from that realization in 2016 to the going there to actually help folks put in water wells and more importantly to like teach them how to do it so they could maintain it and spread it. The gap that happened in those 6 years is in 2020, my business had freed up my time. It wasn't making enough equity or long-term wealth or monthly revenue to significantly pay for this work, but it was making enough to free up my time, which is important. That's the first part. So I was in my commercial banker's office in 2020 back in North Mississippi, and I was building a relationship with him when this other fellow walks in and my banker says, "Oh, hey, Jim, you should talk to Paul. His life purpose is helping the poor get water." And Jim looked at me. He was in flip flops and probably like a Hawaiian shirt. And he had this big gas station iced tea. He's a country boy. And he goes, "Well, buddy, I run 1 million wells and we do just that. You should come
Holy
with
cow.
us." There's another guy moment.
You just ran into him in a bank.
That's right. It was like that real
Wow.
estate investors conference moment. And the lesson there, Erik, is both of those divine appointments, those messages, those huge life altering whys and hows, if you will, they came in the normal course of doing business.
Yeah.
So for you and anybody listening, if you don't know exactly what to do or you don't have this like super clear life purpose yet, that's okay. Martin Luther King Jr. said faith is taking the first step without being able to see the whole staircase. So you keep taking the action in business and in your life, and sometimes the purpose and the explanation meets you along the way. And that's what happened in both of these things. But I was like, okay, Jim, I'd love to. So a few months later, they trained me at his ranch in West Tennessee, and then I got sciatica. I got sciatica such that all I could do for about 6 weeks was lay on my best friend Britannia's living room floor and crawl to the restroom. And I was 41, and I thought I'd never walk again. And the pain was so bad I didn't care, just shooting down my left side. And it wasn't like, oh no, I can't walk. I hope I heal up so I can walk. I was just like, I don't care. This pain, this hurts. And at any rate, I was eventually healed. And a few months after that, that's when we went to Malawi and Uganda. And there was one instance where we showed up in this one community, and this guy he goes, "Oh, great, you're going to drill a well for us." And I said, "No, you're going to drill a well. We're going to do it with you. Then we're going to do it again with you, and we're going to leave, and you're going to be able to maintain it and keep doing it more and more." And that's way more important than me giving them something or even doing something for them. Doing it with you is that's empowerment and that's autonomy for them, and it's more respectful of lots of things.
I read a blog post on your website about that story, that
Mhm.
specific story was said, "Oh, all smiles, you're going to build a well for us." And you said, "Nope." And he was like, "What?" I said, I'm
Yep.
going to build a well with you and teach you how to do it," which is so amazing because so many organizations come in and dump goodness on a community and leave. And once the goodness is used up, they're right back where they started from, which is what I love about your organization and your mission is that you step up and you teach people rather than helping people with handouts, which I think is amazing. If we step back, how did the nickname Waterboy come about?
Sure. I I've got two nicknames related to this mission. One is my handle, so most places on social media I'm at Paul B. Walking. And Paul B. Walking is a double entendre because my full name is Paul Brown. So Paul, the letter B, Walking, I'm walking. And when I got injured on day two of a 2-year walk across Africa, I told Evans, my walking buddy, that now I'm Paul B. Limping. And so we laughed about that. And sometimes I still am. But Waterboy came from this fact. One, there's lots of Paul Brown. So if you Google Paul Brown, you'll probably find a famous football coach. And you might somewhere in there find me. But if you Google Paul Waterboy Brown, you'll probably find at least one interview or mention of me. And I like that a lot better than not being found. But more importantly, I do realize that I'm a tall, giant, um, financially independent, educated white man walking across Africa. So I like to do things to make myself more approachable and less serious and as humble as possible. And so I didn't choose Aquaman or some other self-glorifying thing. I chose something funny and slightly deprecating like Waterboy. And also, if Adam Sandler or the director of that movie or anyone else gets upset about it and wants me to not use it, then it's a perfect opportunity to say it would be better for us to just wrestle or arm wrestle for it. So come over here and do that. And if you can beat me, which they can, I'm not really that strong, then I'll stop doing it.
That's
But
great.
he would really just probably come walk with me and it'd be a great publicity.
You mentioned Evans, your walk-in buddy. Tell me a little bit about him and how the two of you got connected.
Certainly. His name is Evans Jr. It's named after his father, Evans Sr. I met his father in 24 when I was in Zambia with Gia and Dave and some American friends of mine who were investing in some mining activities in Zambia. And I noticed that even Senior was very reliable and very cool and very calm and knew what to do. So before I started the Walk for Water, I communicated with him such that we both agreed that he would be my advisor and that he would drive for me as I walk across the continent.
So he's a
So
local.
that's right. He's local to Zambia, Southern Africa,
Okay.
and he's more local to all of Africa than I am. So,
Yeah.
uh, so there's that. But this was my plan was never to just get a pack and a tent and walk by myself across Africa. That's been done. So I'm telling you, and I've always been upfront about the fact that there's been other people who have already walked Africa. They've done it harder and better and longer than I have. They haven't taken breaks. They haven't had support. Mario Rigby's one of them. Interviewed him on my podcast right before I got started. And but our point that allowed us to point to them and be like, they're the ones who did it really awesomely. We're doing it more as a survey and as a container for the water work. So the walk across Africa, actually the least important part about it is the walking. And the most important part is the relationships we build along the way, the water training that we help people get along the way, and this human network infrastructure of local water leaders we're setting up along the way. And lastly, I know there's a lot, is the fourth thing, but lastly, it's like a survey. So while we're walking, we're not going to be able to reach every single person miles either side of our walk. But we can do a survey and show what's possible and get more familiar with where the needs are. And but the main reason we walk is it's because they do. So we're walking by choice in solidarity with folks that have to walk the water just to survive.
Hey, before we get back to my conversation with Paul, I want to direct your attention to something that I think is really easy to miss in Paul's story. Paul didn't start a podcast, he started with a purpose. His podcast simply became the platform to advance that purpose. I talk a lot about podcasting because I love podcasting, but podcasting isn't the point. It's your authority. It's not the platform. The platform is just a means to an end. But when you define that end with the purpose in mind, that's when you make big things happen. And the lesson every expert needs to hear in Paul's story is that your platform simply leads to a purpose. Too many people launch a podcast thinking about downloads or interviews or creating more content or building their business, but that's not the end of it. Your podcast is a vehicle. It's simply a platform to help you get where you're going. But the real question is, where are you going? Where is your podcast taking people? Is it building trust and rapport? Is it creating those powerful, profitable relationships? Is it positioning you as the go to authority in your niche and for your mission that you've been called to lead? Or is it just another show that publishes episodes every week? That's nice content, but really doesn't do anything in the world. That's exactly what I help experts uncover in my podcast authority audit. You and I sit down, we deep dive into an episode. We look at your podcast through the lens of authority. Where are you building that authority? We look at your messaging, your positioning, your storytelling, and how every episode moves listeners toward the transformation that only you can provide. Because when your podcast is aligned with a mission that's bigger than yourself, it stops becoming content and it starts becoming a movement. So, if you'd like to discover how your podcast can become your most powerful authority building asset, just visit podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching. There's a video right there on that page that I created for you that will explain everything and how it works. It's over at podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching. All right, now let's get back to my conversation with Paul Waterboy Brown. So, how did you move from working with Evans Senior to Evans Junior?
You know what? My tangent self or detailed self distracted me from your question. So, right before I went to Zambia to start the Walk for Water, even Senior told me, "Hey, there's a slight change, but we'll talk about it when you get here." And I was like, I don't like that, but I'm too busy and detailed to dig into it. So, sure, we'll just talk about it when we get there. Well, I got there and they had made this feast for me. I flew into Lusaka, Zambia, went to even Senior's house. I was eating with the whole family. He had asked me what I liked. I sent him a list of all this yummy food, which included gizzards and sweet plantains, and a bunch of other stuff too, like goat. And I gave him a long list so he could pick two or three things, but they made all of them, and then I felt really bad. And I was like, "That's not what I meant, but thank you. I'll still eat it." And while we were eating that dinner, the family was acting strange, not what I'm used to. And I found out why the next day. So after church, I took them out to dinner, and after dinner, even Senior and his wife Patrina took me to my hotel and talked with me and said, "Hey, the slight change is I can't go and drive and advise for you on the Walk for Water." It's like, well, that kind of ruins the whole plan, even Senior. Says, but we're sending our son, Evans Jr., instead. Same name, different body. And I said, well, thank you for not just handing me a problem, but also a solution. And Evans can't come just because his parents sent him. He has to interview me and me him, and we both have to choose this. But I appreciate it and I respect your parenting and family. So send him over in the morning and we'll do just that. So
Yeah, it's pretty big. responsibility to take on blindly unless you're
That's
fully
right.
committed, right?
That's right. And the other thing, when you work for Paul Brown, you're really working with him. And we're almost all, except for maybe Sunday, we're always on. And because we're always on, we also have the ability to always be off. So if on the walk we see some mountain stream or waterfall that we want to jump in, then we'll go do that. But if at 9:30 p.m. we figure out, oh, we need to take care of something, then we're going to do that too. There's no hours. It's the mission.
Yeah.
So I needed him to know that and to know that most of this is going to be great, but there's going to be parts that really stink, and you got to be committed now so you're not jumping ship later.
And so as you're interviewing him, what made you believe like he was in fully committed?
He's got presence and an unbothered flexibility that served him and us well. And I interviewed him on my podcast. And during the podcast, I told him and my audience that whatever you have to do, whatever's on your to-do list, whatever you're doing, however you're spending your time, ask yourself a question. Is this a level 10 activity and do I have a level 10 commitment? And if you don't, then either stop doing that activity or change your commitment level. But anything less than a 10 out of 10 is not worth doing. And so I said, Evans, you know what this is, at least what I'm telling you. Go back down to where we eat breakfast, get out your journal, pray, think about what I said, and then write on your journal a number 1 through 10 of your commitment level. And if it's 10, you can come. And if it's anything less than that, then you're not coming. But no hard feelings. I'll figure it out. No pressure, but that's the requirement. So he went down there. I told my podcast, I don't know what he's going to say, and this isn't theatrics. I just don't have time to do a podcast and find a replacement. So you're witnessing it in real time, which to me is the best way to do something.
Yeah.
And I go down there and I said, Evans, did you spend time with yourself and God? Yep. Pray about it? Yep. What's your number? And he shows me on his journal 11. I said, all right,
11.
you're in.
You're in. That's great. It was that has there been a time where Evans has got you out of a pickle somewhere along the journey just because he's familiar with the terrain and the communities and the landscape?
Several times. Evans knows 5 different languages.
Oh
So
wow.
that's been a huge help in many ways. There was a humorous time where we're in a remote part of Angola, and I saw him get a little frustrated because the guy we were looking to communicate with didn't know English, and I just kind of chuckled that was the way they were going to communicate, and the guy couldn't speak it, so Evans was kind of frustrated with him. But Evans is very patient, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But the biggest time that Evans saved my bacon was not necessarily cultural, but it was still very specific to him. And that is on day 2, I got an injury on my left foot where it felt like it was separating. It's called a
Mm.
peroneal tendon strain. And he uh, he agreed with me towards the end of the day that it was time to stop. And 2 days later, he came. So I just want to emphasize to you and you, dear listener, that a guy, meaning me, that wants to walk 2 years across the continent couldn't walk 2 days across the city. And that's just how life is sometimes. And but 2 days later, we were camping on the beach, healing up, and even said, "Hey, I can walk back to that last mile that you couldn't finish and walk it for you if you want me to." And I said, I do want that. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here healing up. And thank you so much. Well, he goes, and a few minutes later, I get this video on WhatsApp from him. And it's him looking into the camera with these magnificent dunes behind him because we're in Namibia on the coast. And he goes, "The walk for water continues." And it's my favorite video. And so we traded places, and he started walking for me. I was driving for him. And then when I healed up, we both tag team it now, which means we can cover ground better, but more importantly, it's better optics for what the water fix looks like because it's not going to be just me going to fix Africa. Um, I mean, I don't even think it needs fixing. It's more of water infrastructure that needs to be brought. But
Yeah.
teamwork is what it needs to look like and actually be. And everything that was happening as the Walk for Water was beginning, and since then, we would have these setbacks and hardships and delays. And every time that setback ended up being an upgrade. And so both the injury and the fact that Evans Jr. was there, who's not only a mechanical engineer, but also a soccer coach with 16 pack abs, uh, meant that his father, twice his age, and his six pack is like mine. Um, it's undercover and in a witness protection program, it's more of a keg than a 16 pack. But his dad would not have wanted to walk like that. I don't blame
Yeah.
him, and his dad's at home with his young family. So it worked out perfectly, even though it was a change. And so it's made
Yeah.
me very open to change and ask the question like, okay, where's the upgrade in this
Y-
seemingly unfortunate thing?
You're walking along, he's kind of driving with you. You have your tent so you can sleep out there in the middle of nowhere. What kind of wildlife encounters have you come across on your journey?
We spent a night or two with the elephants, and that is not advised. We were with this.
Why is sleeping amongst the elephants not advised?
Well, I don't experience elephants as aggressive or predatory, but if they step on you in your tent for whatever reason, then
Yeah,
that's a
that would
permanent
not be good.
situation. Correct. And if they were doing it with loving motives, you're still dead. So not advised. And it's their land. So if that happens, you know, it's not like the elephants are picking on you or you can stop them. You shouldn't have been there. So, but
They,
this happened when we were spending the night with this ancient village that's kind of forgotten by Namibia. And that night we heard elephants, hippopotamuses that were also
oh,
sleeping nearby and are even more dangerous. And I thought I heard a lion, but at this point we're not sure. But around 5 a.m., one of the men of the village, we just heard him yelling hysterically, attempting to get the elephants to go away from the village and not step on the tent. And they had lost a person recently in that same situation where an elephant killed somebody in the night in their village. So he
oh
was
wow.
pretty motivated.
Do
Generally, we don't
do
camp to fear
elephants
the
approach
elephant.
people? Do they not have that fear of people? Will they just wander into a village?
Um, sometimes, but they also seem to know where the elephants like to be. So, for example, I needed to, I needed to relieve myself, and so this story I'm telling you is how we came up. We invented a new word and also deals with elephants, but I think in this instance or somewhere along the lines, I texted Evans or WhatsApped him that I was taking a dumpster, which was a typo. I meant to say taking a dump, but I put in dumpster. So from then on, we always just called bowel movements dumpsters. And in this particular village, I went where I thought I could go uh, use the dumpster. And midway, one of the men like ran over and was like, "No, no, no! You can't do that here. You can't be here. This is where the elephants do dumpsters." And I was like, they don't want to share." And so anyway, I expedited it and went and found a different dumpster. But but he knew
Wow.
exactly where the elephants would not want me, and then I listened, and it really wasn't that far away from where it was safe, according to them. So yeah, there's patterns, and these animals, not just elephants, but a lot of animals will, if you're by yourself, then you're not as safe as if you're right next to a vehicle or in a vehicle or with eight humans and you're really close together. Because,
Right.
like when we're walking with rhinos on safari, we could walk by and among and pretty close to rhinos as long as we would stay in a single file line and stay close together because their guards, who also had AK-47s, told us that if you do that, they will perceive you as one entity. And if you get scared and try to run off and get separated, then you will be perceived as a much smaller entity, less of a threat, and more easy for them to pick on if they wanted to. But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so there's been other times where we've been walking and we've seen elephants. One time, one was not pleased with us at all when we were in what should be called a national park in northern what is it, Zimbabwe. And we actually ran up to the elephants because they were crossing the road. And when we got there, they were still on the side of the road. I was driving, Evans was next to me. The elephants were about 25 feet away, so very close. He didn't like us being there, brandished his trunk and his ears at us, wanting us to move on. Generally, when elephants tell me that they don't want me there, I like to listen and move on. But Evans
Good
was going
idea.
kind of slow, so I was like, Evans, let's go. We don't want to tick off the elephants. He's like, no, boss, it's okay. And I was like, Evans, we're not here to annoy the elephants. And then it ran off. So Evans kind of won that one, but that's not a game I like to play.
The things you don't consider when you're getting ready to walk across Africa. That's amazing.
It's a good quote right
How
there.
how can people help and support your mission?
I would love for you to go to water.work. That's a redirect, but you just put it in your web browser as www.water.work. Takes you to our Zephy.com hosted giving site, and I'd like for you to give $1. And when you do that, when you give $1, it it allows us to show you exactly where that dollar went. And the reason I say $1 is because in our walk and in our water work, we're able to impact lives for about $1 per head. So $1 in our ecosystem, in our economics, means that one person gets water permanently. And I don't mean if you give $1 per month, that person gets water permanently. I mean $1 once does. So that's why I'm calling you. Go give that. It gets you on our mailing and update list. We'll update you. We'll also show you like where that's going. If you want to give more than that, that's great. Or if you want to be monthly, that's great. But I don't want there to be any kind of a hurdle in a decision to give and get involved. The easiest way to get involved is simply to go there now, give $1, and then you and I can take it from there as we build a relationship.
That's great. That's at water.work. How easy is that? One
That's right.
dollar and water.work. It doesn't get much easier to help plant wells across Africa. That is amazing. If you were to start this journey again, 2 year walk across Africa, what's one thing you would do differently if you had to start over?
I think I'd ask for more help sooner.
Wow.
I'm not resistant to help, but I've gotten feedback from a lot of people that they don't necessarily feel invited to the work. And I know that for whatever reason, I've been afraid or avoiding asking people directly, "Hey, can you give to help folks get water?" And I don't feel like I'm resistant to delegating or receiving help, but I'm doing some work and healing around worthiness and that my presence or ask or existence isn't a burden, and that the chit chat that most of us who aren't psychopaths have around not enough or things not working out or other kinds of worry or worthiness issues. Um, I think some of the solution to that is asking and teamwork and being available and living in community and connection.
Yeah, that's great insight. Uh, how far into the walk are you and what's next for you down the road?
We're a third of the way across Africa, so we've walked about 1,300 miles so far. Our trek across Africa is just under 6,000 miles. We've walked 4.5 countries. We've got about 8 more to walk. And I differentiated that we're a third of the way across Africa because we've recently decided that we want to walk all inhabitable continents, all six. And so North America's next. Need to get a minor back surgery first, or somehow get rid of the residue of this sciatica pain. And oh, there's one distinction I should probably tell you about. It's the work we do isn't just water wells because that's sometimes for whatever reason not practical. A lot of times it's training folks on lifetime water filters, and sometimes it's hand pump repair. We'll add more tools and skills along the way. And we don't like to get hung up on, oh, it's got to be this method or that method. It's more about what's going to empower the people to have their own clean water permanently. So whether that's
Yeah,
a
it's
well or
keeping an eye on the vision and the
that's
ultimate
right.
goal. How you get there isn't nearly as important as the 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 end point.
That's correct. That's correct. And
Yeah.
the biggest piece of that is usually centered around how do we get locals to be empowered once such that they own the equipment and the technique and the ability and the water source permanently.
Well, and that's what I loved about the blog post that I read, where you told the guy you weren't going to build him a well, that you were going to help him build a well and teach him how to fix it and teach him how to repair it and teach him how to teach other people how to do it so that when you're not there anymore, the legacy continues and they continue to have clean water. And not only do they continue to have clean water, other communities around them get clean water because they are able to teach others. And you have a whole section there on the website of your students teaching other students, which I think is phenomenal work. That's how legacy is formed.
That's right. I've got two goals, Eric. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for the feedback and encouragement. My major life goal is that somewhere around 2035, 10 years, we look at the world and the water problem as we know it today is fixed, such that it's kind of hard to find a community that doesn't have clean water. And then, not that I need to be known for it, I'm not looking for that at all, but I mean, that happens. It's already happened. But somebody will say, well, Paul, that's great. How many wells did you drill? And I'll say zero because they drilled them.
Yeah. And that's real change.
That's right.
That's amazing. Paul, I love your story. I love your purpose, your mission, your journey. I hope everybody gets involved at least $1, if not more. You can find all the details at water.work online. It's water.work. Head over and start by giving $1 and let's see where it goes from there. Paul, truly appreciate you spending time with us. Best of luck in the journey. I can't wait to see the updates as you continue your trek across Africa. And thanks for all the great you do in the world.
Thank you so much, Eric. Grateful to be here and same to you.
Such a great conversation with Paul Waterboy Brown. I can't thank Paul enough for taking time out of his walk across Africa to join us today. I would love to see you help Paul on his purpose. You can do so with just $1. There's no catch. Like you don't get there and all of a sudden you have to get locked into $100 a month or anything. There is an opportunity for you to do more, but every dollar truly matters. You can surely give more if you're able, but let's just start with $1. And let's just start by visiting the page. Head over to water.work. That's it. There's no .com, there's no .org. It's just water.work. Super easy. Get involved today. I'd love to see you help Paul move his mission forward. And let's start defining your purpose as well. Head over to water.work and give Paul a hand. Just $1. Can't thank you enough for being here this week. You know, I surely would love to help you define your purpose and start growing your authority. You've been publishing all the episodes, you've stayed consistent, generating that content week after week, and you know your content's good. But you sit there and you look at it and you find that frustration building inside of you because you're not being seen as the go-to authority in your space. And you know your content's good and you should be. Your podcast isn't creating the level of influence and authority that you expected when you launched the podcast. It's not doing anything to grow your business. It's not attracting your clients magnetically. But people listen, but they just don't take action. right? You can see you're getting some downloads, but you're not getting clients from those downloads. You sound professional, but it's just not clicking. You're not unforgettable. And that's what I want to help you with. Because consistency alone doesn't create the authority, it's the intentional leadership that does. It's that purpose as the foundation. So if you're ready to turn your podcast into an authority engine and not just more content, if you would like to move from being the best kept secret to the recognized, sought after authority in your niche, let's get after it. Let me audit your podcast and find your authority gaps. Where is the authority leaking each and every episode? That's derailing you and distracting you and keeping you from making the impact that you want to make. All you have to do is head over to podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching. There's a video right there that explains everything. Click that button, apply to have a chat with me, and we'll sit down. We'll uncover your authority positioning problem. We'll develop your goals to help you succeed, and then I'll show you how I can help you reach those goals quickly and easily. I'd love to support you. Head over to podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching. Thanks for being here again this week. I can't wait until we do it all again next week. Until then, step into your authority, and we'll see you next time.